I pulled into the driveway of our cozy suburban home on Sycamore Lane, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows over the manicured lawn. From the outside, our house was the picture of American domestic bliss. 2 stories of red brick, white trim, and a little porch with a swing. In our quiet neighborhood just outside Chicago, I was known simply as Dr. Michael Thompson, the friendly surgeon who waved to neighbors while fetching the morning paper. And my wife, Christine, was the charming housewife who baked cookies for the school fundraiser and jogged every morning with a wave to everyone she met. To any outsider, we had the perfect life. Sometimes I almost believed it too. I wanted to believe it. After all, I had built a successful career as a cardiac surgeon by believing in evidence. In fact, I could see with my own eyes. And with my own eyes, I saw that Christine was beautiful, caring, and devoted, at least on the surface. We had been married for 10 years, and in that time she played the role of suburban wife with grace and enthusiasm. Dinners were always home-cooked. The house was always immaculate. At parties, she hung on my arm, the envy of some of my colleagues for having such a radiant partner. Yet, as I killed the engine and sat in the stillness of the car, I felt the familiar twinge of unease in my gut. It had become a nightly ritual for me, pausing in the driveway, delaying the moment I would walk inside. Lately, the house felt less like a home and more like a stage where we performed our assigned roles. And I, increasingly, had the sense that I was the only one who didn't know the script. "Michael, you're being paranoid," I whispered to myself, running a hand through my hair. It was something I'd repeated often over the last year. Because what kind of husband would suspect his loving wife of what exactly? I wasn't even sure. All I had were intangible feelings, small inconsistencies that pricked at my brain. Christine's smiles sometimes seemed too bright to be real. Her eyes, which once overflowed with warmth and love, occasionally looked distant when she thought I wasn't watching. There were the phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room, the errand runs that took inexplicably long. I had no concrete evidence of anything, just the gnawing sensation that something was off. As a surgeon, I knew better than to ignore warning signs just because the diagnosis was inconvenient. But as a husband, it was easier to dismiss those signs than face a painful truth. With a sigh, I grabbed my briefcase and stepped out of the car. The evening air was warm, carrying the smell of fresh cut grass and someone's barbecue down the street. I forced a smile and waved at old Mr. Jenkins across the road as he watered his flowers. Appearances must be kept, after all. When I opened the front door, the aroma of garlic and baked cheese wafted through the air. Christine must have been cooking lasagna, my favorite. The smell usually would have made my mouth water, but tonight it turned my stomach a little. It felt like she was compensating for something, though I couldn't say what. "Hi, honey, you're home," Christine's voice rang out from the kitchen, cheerful and musical as always. I hung up my keys and jacket, watching her glide out of the kitchen wearing a flowered apron. At 35, she could have passed for a woman in her mid-20s. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and only a slight tightness around her eyes hinted at any age at all. That, and the experience those eyes concealed. "Smells great," I said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. She turned just enough that my lips barely brushed skin. An old familiar pang hit my chest at that small gesture. It was so subtle, so quickly masked with a bright smile, I almost doubted it happened. But I knew it did. Little things like that were what set my intuition humming. "Go wash up. Dinner's almost ready," she said, turning back to the kitchen before I could meet her eyes. Upstairs, as I washed my hands in the sink, I noticed the bedroom window was open. Through it, I saw Christine's jogging shoes on the back porch where she'd left them to air out. She usually jogged in the mornings, but this morning I remembered she hadn't gone. She'd claimed she was feeling a bit under the weather, yet apparently she felt well enough to spend the afternoon cooking an elaborate dinner. It was a minor inconsistency, but it nagged at me. I dried my hands and loosened my tie, glancing around our bedroom. Everything was in its place, neat and perfect. Christine's vanity table held an array of perfumes and cosmetics arranged just so. On her dresser was a framed photo from our 5th anniversary trip to Hawaii. Christine in a sun hat, myself behind her with arms wrapped around her waist, both of us smiling at the camera in golden late afternoon light. We looked happy. We were happy then, I think. I tried to recall that feeling now, to banish the unease, but it was like grasping at smoke. At dinner, we sat across from each other at the dining table under the soft glow of the chandelier. Christine chatted about mundane things, the upcoming neighborhood block party, a new cafe that opened in town, a funny thing our neighbor Linda said at the grocery store. I nodded at the right times, even laughed when Christine recounted how Linda accidentally switched carts and tried to walk out with someone else's groceries. On the surface, it was a pleasant domestic scene, a loving couple sharing small talk over a delicious meal. Underneath, I felt like an imposter, going through the motions. My mind was only half on the conversation. The other half replayed all the small, odd moments from the past weeks. Like how Christine's phone, usually glued to her hand as she texted friends or checked recipes, had been left face down and silent on the kitchen counter all evening. Or how she mentioned Linda just now. Linda Wilson was our neighbor and one of Christine's close friends. Hadn't Linda seemed unusually cool towards Christine the last time I saw them together? I recall waving to both women outside a couple days ago. Linda gave me a tight, awkward smile and hurried inside. Christine had laughed it off when I asked about it. Oh, you know Linda, always in a rush. But it felt like a deflection. So I told her we'd absolutely love to come. You're okay with that, right, Mike? Christine's question snapped me back. I blinked. I had lost the thread. Sorry, come to what? She tilted her head with a playful sigh. The neighborhood block party on Saturday. Weren't you listening to a word I said? Her tone was teasing, but her eyes studied me intently. Of course I was. Sorry, I was just thinking about a patient. I lied smoothly, forcing a grin. Saturday, yes, that should be fine. She beamed. Great, I already told Linda we'll bring your famous chili for the cook-off. You have to defend your title, champ. She winked. I chuckled automatically. For the past 3 years running, I had won the neighborhood chili cook-off, mostly because Christine insisted I enter and then help me perfect the recipe. It was one of those silly, cute things we did as a team. The memory should have been heartwarming, but now it felt staged, like a performance we put on as the Thompsons' happy couple. After dinner, I insisted on doing the dishes. As I cleaned up, I watched Christine from the kitchen. She settled on the living room couch with a glass of red wine and her phone. From my angle, I could see her tapping away at a message, her manicured nails clicking on the screen. Her lips curved in a small smile at whatever she read. Normally, she was quite open about gossiping or joking with her girlfriends in front of me, often reading aloud a funny text from them. Tonight, she was silent, absorbed. I made a bit of noise with the dishes, rattling a pan, and cleared my throat as I walked into the living room. Christine nearly jumped, quickly locking her phone and looking up with that dazzling smile. All done already? That was quick, she said. The slightest quiver in her voice betrayed her surprise or nerves. Many hands make light work, I joked, sitting down beside her. Though in this case, it was just mine. You cooked, the least I could do was clean. She leaned over and pecked my cheek. You're such a good husband. I savored the brief closeness. Moments like this, I wanted to forget my suspicions and just accept her affection as genuine. Maybe I really was imagining things. Maybe Christine sensed my distance and was texting a friend for advice or venting. Nothing nefarious at all. We watched a TV show for a while, some lighthearted sitcom, her head resting on my shoulder. It felt almost normal. But by 10 p.m., Christine excused herself, claiming she was tired from all the cooking. You sure you don't want to watch the news? They're doing a segment on that new cardiology wing your hospital's opening, I offered. Usually she was very supportive of my career and liked seeing any media involving the hospital or my work. Not tonight, she said lightly, already halfway up the stairs. Kiss goodnight. I might be asleep by the time you come up. I frowned slightly. It was a bit early for her, but I walked to the staircase. She met me halfway down, gave me a quick kiss on the lips this time, and then hurried back up, the bedroom door closing behind her. Alone, I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I looked at the half-finished wine on the coffee table, the impressions of her curled legs still visible on the couch cushion. Something was very wrong. I could feel it in the hollow ache in my chest. This day, like so many recent days, Christine and I had interacted politely, even warmly, yet I felt more distant from her than ever. As if she was present in the room, but her mind or heart was elsewhere entirely. I turned off the TV and decided to take out the trash before heading to bed. A small procrastination. I just needed a minute to gather myself. The night air was still and heavy with late summer humidity. Crickets chirped in the bushes. I walked the trash bag to the curb, my mind churning. Was I truly being paranoid? Men in my position, middle-aged, busy professional, perhaps a little neglectful of home life, often worried about their wives straying. I'd seen colleagues go through messy divorces after affairs came to light. I never thought it could happen to Christine and me. We were the golden couple once, weren't we? But when did that change? Maybe around a year ago, I admitted to myself. There wasn't a single moment, but a collection of them. Christine growing more distant in bed, her disinterest in planning future trips, or even talking about growing old together like we used to. She had become more guarded about her phone, and her routines had subtly shifted. I was often too exhausted from surgeries to question things, easy to brush off as her picking up new hobbies or friends to occupy time. I closed the garbage bin and turned back to the house. Our bedroom light was off now. On a whim, I walked to Christine's car parked in the driveway. It struck me that I hadn't peeked inside it in ages. Why would I have? But the nagging in my head pushed me to try the doors. Locked. I peered through the window in the faint light of the porch lamp. The interior looked clean, nothing unusual. Still, something caught my eye in the back seat, a small square shape. I recognized the pattern. It was one of those reusable grocery bags, folded neatly. Christine kept a few in her trunk, usually. Why was one in the back seat and not the trunk? Hardly a smoking gun, I chided myself. I stepped back and glanced up at the dark bedroom window. I felt vaguely guilty sneaking around my own driveway. If Christine looked out and saw me pacing by her car, what would I say? Shaking my head, I went inside. I decided I would try to talk to her this weekend, after the block party maybe, when we had some time together away from work and distractions. Perhaps a heart-to-heart would help clear the air. Perhaps she was just unhappy with something in our marriage, something we could fix with communication or counseling. Every marriage has rough patches, I reasoned. As I finally got ready for bed, I tried to push away the dark scenarios my imagination had concocted. She wasn't cheating on me. Christine loved me, she said so just the other day, didn't she? Yes, she had kissed me on the cheek that morning and said, "Love you, have a great day," as I left for work. That had to mean something. You don't casually lie about that after a decade together. Do you? I slid under the covers gently so as not to wake her. In the dim light from the hallway nightlight, I could just make out her form turned away from me. Her breathing was soft and even. I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I should reach out and pull her close. But a wall of intangible distance seemed to lie between us in that bed. I was afraid if I tried, she might pull away, confirming my worst fears. Instead, I whispered, "Good night, Chris," into the darkness, not expecting an answer. None came. I closed my eyes, heart heavy, hoping that tomorrow would bring clarity or at least peace. The next morning was Friday, and I woke to an empty bed. Christine had already gotten up. I smelled coffee drifting from downstairs. In a corner of the room, I noticed the outfit Christine had worn yesterday draped over a chair. She was usually tidy with her clothes. It was unlike her to leave them out. As I showered and dressed for work, I picked up her clothes to toss them in the hamper. That's when I saw it, a faint smudge on the collar of the pale pink blouse she'd worn. I held it up to the morning light streaming through the window. It was subtle, but unmistakable, a reddish-brown smear, maybe makeup. No, Christine wore very little makeup, and this looked more like lipstick. My heart pounded. Christine never wears lipstick that shade. She prefers light pink gloss. And she doesn't usually hug people, unless it rubbed off from someone else. I stood there, shirt half buttoned, just staring at that stain. Images flooded my mind unbidden. Christine leaning close to someone with red lipstick, or perhaps Christine herself wearing it for someone else? No, if it was hers, she'd have cleaned it. It looked like she didn't know it was there. My hands were shaking. This was thin evidence of anything, but my body reacted like it was a smoking gun. I stuffed the blouse in the hamper and closed my eyes, willing myself to calm down. Accidents happen. Maybe she tried a new lipstick sample at the mall or something, or hugged a female friend who had lipstick. Yes, that could be it. Maybe Linda hugged her. But why would Linda be wearing smudgy lipstick at midday? It didn't make sense. Downstairs, I found Christine humming quietly in the kitchen, already dressed in her workout leggings and a tank top, her hair in a high ponytail. She looked fresh-faced and innocent, pouring coffee into a travel mug for me. "Morning, sleepyhead," she teased. "I was just about to come wake you. Did you want breakfast? I made you a smoothie. It's in the fridge." I swallowed hard and forced a smile. "Morning. Thanks." I pulled the smoothie jar out and took a sip, watching her. She wasn't wearing any lipstick now, just a clear gloss as usual. She glanced at me as she put the coffee mug lid on. "You okay? You look a little pale." "Didn't sleep well, I guess," I said. "How'd you sleep?" She flashed a quick smile. "Like a baby. Oh, by the way, I'm going to yoga after my run, so I might not be home when you leave. I'll see you tonight, okay? I'm having lunch with my friend Kara this afternoon, so if I'm not here when you get back, don't worry." Her tone was casual, breezy. Too casual. My mind was scrutinizing every word, every tone now. Kara. Kara. I searched my memory. Christine had a friend named Kara from her book club. That checked out. They did occasionally lunch. But combined with everything else, doubt coiled in my stomach. "Sure," I said softly. I stepped forward and pulled her into a hug. She stiffened almost imperceptibly before relaxing in my arms. I breathed in her familiar vanilla scent, wondering if I was holding a stranger. She patted my chest and pulled back to straighten my tie with a light laugh. "What's this for? Not that I'm complaining." "Just felt like it," I said, attempting a grin. My eyes scanned her face for, I don't know what, guilt, fear. All I saw was a slight flush in her cheeks from the hug, and maybe a flicker of confusion in her blue eyes. "Well, aren't you sweet this morning?" She rose on tiptoes and gave me a brief kiss on the lips almost the way she used to. "Don't forget, we have a block party tomorrow. Try not to stay too late at work today, okay? I need my chili chef rested and ready." I nodded, picking up my briefcase and the coffee. My mind was screaming with questions about the blouse and the phone and Linda, but I swallowed them down. I didn't want to start a confrontation when I was about to leave for work. And truthfully, part of me was afraid to hear her answers. Afraid that the perfect world we presented would shatter for good. "Have a good run," I managed to say as I walked to the door. Christine smiled brightly, already stretching her arms. "Will do. Love you." She said it so easily. "Love you too," I replied automatically. As I drove down our street, I saw Christine in the rearview mirror. She took off at a light jog towards the park like she did almost every morning. I watched until I had to turn the corner. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. I felt at a crossroads, keep ignoring the signs or face them head-on. A memory surfaced unbidden, something my college mentor once told me during a difficult surgery rotation. Trust, but verify. You hope for the best outcome, but you double-check everything. Perhaps it was time I did just that. Trust is a beautiful thing, but when it's possibly misplaced, verification might save lives, or in this case, a marriage or my sanity. I didn't know exactly what I would do, what I was even looking for, but I knew one thing. I could no longer live with a nagging doubt. I had to know the truth about my wife, whatever it may be. And it was becoming clear that the truth might be far darker than I dared imagine. I spent Friday at the hospital in a fog of distraction. Under usual circumstances, I'd be focused on my patients and surgeries, but today I found my mind drifting back to the lipstick stain on Christine's blouse and the uneasy feeling that it represented so much more. I double-checked charts, triple-checked medication doses, anything to keep my thoughts from wandering at crucial moments. Surgery demands precision. One slip and lives can be lost. Thankfully, my schedule was light with only morning rounds and a single minor procedure. By early afternoon, I was finishing up notes in my office when my phone buzzed with a text. Glancing down, I saw an unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it while at work, but something compelled me to open it. "Hi, Michael. It's Linda Wilson from next door. Could we talk? It's important." Linda. My pulse quickened. We were friendly, but not exactly in the habit of texting each other. Why would she contact me out of the blue on a weekday? "Is everything okay?" I typed back. The dots of an incoming reply blinked then. "I really need to discuss something with you. In person. When are you off work?" My mouth went dry. A sense of foreboding settled over me. Linda wanted to meet in person, urgently. I had a strong feeling this was about Christine. What else could it be? My mind conjured worst-case scenarios. Was Christine hurt? In trouble? Before panic took over, I called her number. It rang a few times. "Hello, Michael?" Linda's voice sounded tense and a bit hoarse, like she'd been crying. "Linda, hi. I got your message. I can leave the hospital in a bit. Is something wrong? Are you okay?" I asked, trying to keep my tone calm. She hesitated. It's about Christine. And Dave," she added quietly. I stood up from my desk, heart pounding. Dave was her husband. "What about them?" I asked, my throat tight. "Please, can we meet? I'd rather not do this on the phone." Her voice wavered. I glanced at the clock. It was 2 p.m. "I can meet you at 3. Where would you like to talk?" "There's a coffee shop on Maple and 3rd, Perk and Pastry. That's okay." "I know it. I'll be there." "Thank you," she whispered, relief and strain evident. We hung up, and I realized my hand was trembling as I set the phone down. My office suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in. I quickly gathered my things, informed my secretary that I had to leave early due to a personal emergency, and headed out. The drive to Perk and Pastry was a blur. My thoughts were racing with fragments of possibilities, none of them good. Christine and Dave. I remembered Dave Wilson well. We occasionally chatted about football or lawn care across our yards. He was a fit guy in his 40s, working in finance downtown. He and Linda had been married almost as long as Christine and I, and they had 2 young kids. Christine and I had even babysat their kids once or twice, while the Wilsons had date nights. The idea of Christine and Dave being mentioned in the same breath by Linda made my stomach churn. The coffee shop was quiet at that hour, mid-afternoon lull. I spotted Linda immediately at a corner table, twisting a napkin between her fingers. She looked up as I approached and gave a nervous half-smile. I was struck by how tired she appeared. Her usually neat auburn hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, and her eyes were red-rimmed, as if she'd been crying recently. "Hi, thanks for meeting me," she said softly as I sat down opposite her. "Of course. You said it was about Christine and Dave." I tried to keep my voice even, but I couldn't stop my hands from clenching on top of the table. Linda glanced down at her crumpled napkin. "Yes, I've been going back and forth on whether I should talk to you. I mean, it's not exactly easy or my place, maybe, but after everything, I just can't keep quiet. You deserve to know." Her voice trembled. "Know what?" I asked, though some part of me already dreaded the answer. She took a deep breath, steel entering her eyes. "Your wife had an affair with my husband." Even expecting it, hearing the words was a punch to the gut. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What? When?" I managed to croak. Tears welled in Linda's eyes, but her expression hardened with anger. "For the past 6 months, it started last winter. I found out 2 weeks ago." 6 months. The phrase echoed in my mind. All those times Christine was out supposedly with friends, or when she claimed to be shopping or at yoga. It could have been lies, all lies for half a year. I swallowed, my mouth suddenly dry. How did? How did you find out? Linda looked down, ashamed. I suspected Dave was acting strange, distant, on edge. I thought maybe he was just stressed from work. Then one night he left his laptop open and I saw emails. Her jaw tightened. Emails between him and Christine. They had planned to meet at a hotel. The language in them. There was no doubt what was going on. She closed her eyes briefly, containing her emotions, then continued, I confronted Dave. At first, he tried to deny it, but when I showed him the emails, he broke down and admitted everything. It has been going on since January. They'd meet whenever they could at hotels out by the interstate, even at our house once when I took the kids to visit my sister. Her voice cracked with that admission, pain and disgust coloring her tone. I found myself shaking my head as if doing so would make this less real. I don't know what to say, Linda. My own voice sounded distant to my ears. I was reeling, heart hammering painfully against my ribs. She gave a humorless laugh. There's not much to say, but I thought you should know the kind of person Christine is. My mind struggled to reconcile the image of my wife cooking lasagna and telling me she loved me with this other image of her sneaking off to cheap motels with our neighbor. A burning feeling crawled up my throat. Where is Dave now? I managed. He's living at his brother's. I kicked him out, she said, chin trembling. We're separated. I don't know if we'll... She cut herself off, pressing the napkin to her eyes. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make this about me. No, You have nothing to apologize for, I said quickly, guilt mixing with my shock. God, Linda, I had no idea. I feel so stupid. Her eyes met mine, raw with empathy. You're not stupid. They were very careful. If I hadn't seen those emails, I might still be in the dark. Dave said Christine insisted on no texts, no calls that could be seen. Email under a fake account, secret meetings. She orchestrated it all. I clenched my fists. That sounded meticulous enough to be true. Christine was always clever and careful. But orchestrated it all, did that mean she pursued him? Did he say? How did it start? I forced the question out, even though it was agony to discuss the details. Linda grimaced. He said Christine started flirting with him heavily at the New Year's Eve party we had at our place. I remember that party. Her eyes grew distant, remembering. I was busy putting the kids to bed after midnight while apparently my husband was outside in the cold, kissing your wife. Her voice broke on the last two words. I sucked in a breath sharply as if I'd been slapped. New Year's Eve 6 months ago, I remember Christine slipping out to get some air at that party while I stayed inside talking to friends. She'd returned flushed, saying the night chill was invigorating. I had no idea. Anger and humiliation warred with heartbreak inside me. I'm sorry, I said, though I wasn't even sure who I was apologizing for. Christine's actions, my obliviousness, the entire mess. Linda wiped her eyes. After that, they arranged to meet. Dave said he tried to resist at first. She gave a bitter scoff. But Christine can be very persuasive. He said she made him feel excited and wanted, and she promised no one would get hurt as long as they were careful. I had to bite down hard to contain a surge of rage. Persuasive, yes. Christine could charm anyone when she wanted, and clearly she wanted my neighbor's husband. He also said, Linda continued shakily, that at times he felt like Christine wanted to get caught. She would take little risks, like leaving a scarf behind in his car or sending him a flirty text after hours. He said it was almost like she got off on the danger of it, of possibly being found out. My stomach dropped further. This matched that odd part of Christine's personality I'd sensed, but never defined a thrill-seeking streak. But to risk being caught? She did get caught, I said quietly. Linda nodded. When I confronted her, she didn't even apologize. Did you know that? She came by here after Dave and I had our blowout fight. I guess Dave told her I knew. She waltzed into my home, Michael, and she told me. She said, "I'm sorry you had to find out like that, but maybe it's for the best. You and Dave clearly have issues, and now you can address them." Linda's face flushed with fresh anger at the memory, like it was some kind of favor she did, exposing the cracks in our marriage. I told her to go to hell and stay away from us and our kids. And do you know what she said? She said, "I never wanted to hurt anyone. Sometimes connections happen." Connections, as if it was a cosmic accident. She even had the nerve to act a little hurt, as if I was overreacting. I was shaking now, a mix of fury and disbelief coursing through me. Christine, confronted by the wife of the man she slept with, acting self-righteous and calm. The woman I knew would have been mortified and guilt-ridden. But then, did I really know her at all? "My God," I muttered. "I'm so sorry, Linda. I don't know what to do or say." Linda reached out and lightly touched my hand, a gesture of shared pain. "I'm not telling you this to hurt you, Michael." I struggled with whether to keep quiet. "But seeing you two act normal and Christine smiling like nothing's wrong, I just couldn't stomach it. You deserve to know the truth, even if it's awful. Maybe you can confront her, or, I don't know. I just thought if our positions were reversed, I'd want to know." I squeezed her hand gratefully. "You're right. I Thank you for telling me. I can't pretend I'm not absolutely devastated, but I needed to hear it." My eyes burned, but I refused to break down in public. Linda gave a sad smile. "You're handling it better than I did, honestly. 2 weeks, and I'm still a mess." I raked a hand through my hair. "I'm a mess on the inside," I admitted. "I suspected something was off, but this is beyond anything I imagined." Hearing confirmation that Christine had carried on a 6-month affair under my nose, I could hardly breathe. And the way Linda described Christine's attitude, the callousness, even a hint of pride frightened me as much as it angered me. Who was this person I married? We talked a little longer. Linda told me that after she kicked Dave out, Christine apparently ceased contact with him entirely. Dave was remorseful and begging forgiveness, but Linda was uncertain their marriage could be saved. I asked if Christine seemed to have any regrets. Linda let out a short laugh. She said she was sorry I was hurt, not sorry for what she did. Then she just left. A week later, she was smiling at me in the grocery store, as if we were still friends. I walked away. I apologized again on Christine's behalf. It felt hollow, apologizing for something I hadn't done, but what else could I do? Eventually, Linda looked at her watch and winced. "I should go pick up the kids from day camp. Will you be okay?" I almost laughed at the irony of the question. Would I be okay? My world was falling apart, but I mustered a tight nod. "Yes, thanks to you, at least I'm not living in ignorance anymore. I I have a lot to think about and figure out." She stood, and I did too. On impulse, I gave her a gentle, quick hug. "You take care of yourself," I said softly. "This can't be any easier for you." She hugged back, then stepped away, eyes wet again. "Keep in touch, okay? And if you ever need to talk, I'm next door, going through the same hell." "I appreciate that," I replied. I watched Linda leave the cafe, shoulders hunched, as if carrying a great weight. I remained behind for a few minutes, staring blankly at the table, the reality of her revelations sinking deeper. My wife had destroyed that woman's family. She had brazenly walked into her house after being caught, and had not even shown genuine remorse. And then she came home to me every day, cooked dinner, kissed me, said she loved me, as if nothing happened. A hot tear slipped down my cheek, and I wiped it away angrily. I felt like a fool, but also something else was brewing beneath the pain anger. Yes, but also a determination. I needed answers from Christine, but I knew I couldn't just barge home and accuse her outright. Linda's story proved Christine was deceptive and cautious. If I confronted her without proof, she might just deny everything, turn it around on me. She'd managed to lead a double life for months. She was likely an expert liar. No, I needed to gather evidence, concrete, undeniable evidence of her infidelity and whatever else she might be hiding. The mention of Christine getting off on the danger especially disturbed me. Was Linda implying that Christine enjoyed nearly being caught? What kind of person wants that? I left the coffee shop with a new resolve hardened in my chest. As much as it pained me, I would play along for now. I would act as if nothing had changed, just like Christine was doing. But quietly, I would be watching, investigating. She wasn't going to fool me any longer. On the drive home, I rehearsed my demeanor for that evening. Calm, normal, oblivious. Meanwhile, ideas churned, checking phone records, maybe even hiring a private investigator. Part of me balked at the notion spying on my wife, but she had made me a stranger to the truth of our life. I had to find the truth somehow. It was nearly 5 p.m. by the time I pulled into our driveway. Christine's car was already there. She must have returned from her lunch with Kara. I paused before going in, taking a few deep breaths to steady myself. The next part would be hard. Facing her knowing what I now knew, restraining my anger. When I walked inside, I found Christine in the kitchen again, assembling something that looked like a platter of deviled eggs. She looked up with a brilliant smile. "Hey there, you're home earlier than I expected. How was your day?" Her easy, cheerful tone made my skin crawl, but I summoned a smile. "Oh, a few patient consultations were canceled this afternoon, so I got to slip out. The day was fine." I set down my briefcase. "What's all this?" "Prep for tomorrow's block party," she said, motioning at the eggs. I figured I'd get a head start on some appetizers. Plus, I promised to help with the setup in the morning. I nodded and moved to wash my hands at the sink, partly to avoid looking directly at her for a moment. "How was your day? How was Kara?" I asked casually. "It was good. Yoga was a nice stretch, and lunch with Kara was fun. We tried that new bistro at the mall. Then we did a little shopping. Typical girl stuff." She laughed lightly. I glanced at the shopping bags by the kitchen door. There were indeed a couple of boutique bags. It all looked perfectly in order. But after what I'd heard from Linda, her words sounded hollow, scripted. "That's nice," I said. "I'm thinking of showering and then starting on the chili tonight so it can sit and the flavors meld for tomorrow." Cooking gave me an excuse to not have to chat too much. "Great idea," she replied. She came over and unexpectedly gave me a quick hug from the side. "I'm so glad you're getting off early. It's nice to have you home before 7 for once." I stiffened involuntarily at her touch. A flash of Linda's words, "She kissed your wife outside at New Year's," blazing through my mind. But I quickly recovered and patted her arm. "It's nice to be home," I lied. She pulled back and looked at me, an odd concern flickering over her face. "You feel a little tense," she murmured. "Hard day." I forced a weary smile. "Yeah, hard day, but it's better now." Her gaze searched mine for a moment, and I wondered if she could sense a shift. But then she smiled and patted my chest. "Go relax. I'll finish this up and join you." I escaped upstairs to our bedroom, closing the door behind me and finally letting my smile drop. My heart was pounding with a mix of emotions: hurt, anger, anxiety at what I was about to do. I sat on the bed and pulled out my phone. I opened our mobile phone account app, something I rarely did since Christine and I were on a family plan with auto pay. It showed a log of calls and texts for both our lines. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through Christine's recent activity. There were a lot of calls to a number I didn't recognize, labeled in the log only by the digits, and a handful of texts too, though most were just to friends I knew. The calls? I copied the unfamiliar number and pasted it into a search engine. No obvious hits, likely a personal cell. I thought of Dave's admission. They used email under fake accounts. Maybe she didn't do much by phone. Still, seeing a number appear frequently that I couldn't identify made my stomach twist. It might be Dave's new number or someone else's. I decided phone records would only get me so far. I needed direct evidence. Linda had mentioned hotels by the interstate. Maybe credit card statements would show something. But those were online and Christine handled most of the household bills with my income and her part-time freelance graphic design work, though she hadn't been taking on many projects lately. I made a mental note to check bank statements when I could do so privately. As I changed out of my work clothes, I realized another thing. Tomorrow's block party would have both Christine and Linda in attendance. How was that going to play out? Did Christine think everything with the Wilsons had blown over? Was she expecting we'd all just smile and nod? I shuddered at the thought of the potential public fireworks if Linda confronted her. Perhaps Linda would avoid a scene for the sake of the neighborhood event, but the tension would be there. I knew one thing. I wouldn't confront Christine before the party. We would go and act normal, as would Linda presumably. But after I gathered what I needed, Christine and I would have a very real conversation. For now, I needed to hold it together. I took a quick shower, letting the hot water calm me and steel me for the evening ahead. "You can do this," I muttered. "One night at a time. Find evidence, then confront." Downstairs, I found Christine already done with the eggs and cleaning the kitchen counter. I flashed a practiced smile and got out the ingredients for chili. As I started chopping onions, Christine chatted about a funny story Kara told her, something about Kara's toddler drawing on the walls. I made the appropriate responses, even chuckled at the right times. But inside, I felt hollow. Every laugh, every word from Christine felt like shards of glass in my throat, knowing she could so easily lie and pretend. I stole a glance at her as she put the finished deviled eggs in the fridge. How could someone hide so much behind such a normal face? She caught my eye and winked playfully, coming over to steal a slice of red bell pepper I had chopped. "You always pick the freshest veggies," she teased, popping it in her mouth. I forced a grin. "Only the best for my prize-winning chili." At that moment, I almost wished I didn't know. Ignorance, however false, had been easier. But I did know, and now there was no going back. I would unmask every secret Christine held, no matter how painful it became. Trust had been shattered, but knowledge was now my only power, and I intended to wield it to find out just who my wife really was. The next day dawned bright and unbearably cheerful, mocking the turmoil in my mind. Saturday, the day of the block party. Under different circumstances, I might have looked forward to it. Grilling with neighbors, a cold beer in hand, Christine by my side laughing at some joke. But now I felt only dread. I hadn't confronted Christine the night before. We'd finished making the chili and watched a late movie in silence, both tired. She fell asleep before me, and I lay in bed for hours, staring into the dark, anger and hurt writhing in my chest. I kept imagining her and Dave at some motel, or the thought of her smirking at Linda's pain. By the time morning light filtered through our curtains, I was running on maybe 2 hours of fitful sleep and a surge of adrenaline. Christine acted oblivious to my inner turmoil. She was in full hostess mode after breakfast, bustling about gathering things to bring to the party folding chairs, the chili now reheated and simmering in a crock pot, her tray of deviled eggs. I played along, loading the car and nodding at her reminders. "Don't forget the extension cord for the crock pot, honey." If anything, she seemed a bit hurried, maybe on edge, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt, stress about the event, or just my hopeful imagination that she might feel something was amiss. By noon, the block party was in full swing on our street. Neighbors had set up long tables loaded with potluck dishes and desserts. A couple of grills were fired up, manned by enthusiastic dads in baseball caps. Kids were already zipping around on bicycles and scooters decorated with streamers. Someone had hooked up speakers, and upbeat music floated through the warm summer air. I forced myself to smile and engage in small talk as we set our contributions on the table. The familiar faces came by. Tom from 2 doors down praised my chili with an exaggerated thumbs up. The Jenkinses complimented Christine's eggs. All very normal. But normal was surreal to me now. I felt like I was watching it all from outside my body. I spotted Linda across the way, helping her 5-year-old with a plate of food. Our eyes met briefly. She gave me a sympathetic nod before looking away. My heart ached for her, but I appreciated that she wasn't about to make a scene here. I saw no sign of Dave. Likely he wasn't welcome or had the sense not to show up. Christine caught my gaze and followed it to Linda. For just a second, I thought I saw a flicker of discomfort in her expression. But then she turned to greet another neighbor with a bright laugh, leaving me to wonder if I imagined it. As the afternoon wore on, I watched Christine mingle. If she felt any guilt facing Linda, she hid it expertly. She didn't approach Linda, nor did Linda approach her. They existed on opposite ends of the gathering. I overheard Christine at one point speaking to another neighbor, Carol, in a low voice while glancing toward Linda. Something about rough times for the Wilsons. Carol nodded sympathetically. Christine put on a concerned face that made me inwardly seethe. She was likely spinning the story that Linda and Dave were having marital troubles without admitting she was the cause. It took everything in me to not march up and expose her right then and there. But I knew that would only cause chaos and likely backfire without proof. Instead, I channeled my energy into observation. Christine had always been social, but today I noticed something else, a certain focus in her interactions with some of the men. For instance, when she chatted with Tom, our neighbor who liked chili, she laughed a bit too easily at his jokes, lightly touching his forearm. Tom's wife was right there serving drinks, so maybe it was innocent. But later, I saw Christine talking to another man I didn't know well, Bill, a new neighbor who'd moved in just a month ago, a recently divorced engineer. Christine leaned in as he spoke, tossing her hair and smiling in a way that made my stomach clench. Bill certainly looked charmed. I saw him give her an appreciative once-over when she turned to get something. A pattern emerged. Christine's body language subtly shifted depending on her audience. With the older ladies, she was warm and attentive but reserved. With the men, especially those around her age, or a bit older and unattached or less supervised by a spouse at the moment, she turned up the charm, nothing overt enough to be scandalous in public, just small signals, prolonged eye contact, a gentle touch on the arm, laughter at mediocre jokes. Has she always been like this? Flirtatious to a degree I'd ignored? Perhaps I'd dismissed it as her being friendly. Now, every giggle and light touch felt like evidence of something predatory in her nature. I could almost see the calculation in her eyes, testing who might be susceptible to her allure. I realized with a chill that she might already be eyeing her next target, even here and now. Was Bill next? Or someone else? An intense protectiveness surged in me, not for Christine, but for those unsuspecting neighbors. They had no idea the danger to their marriages or hearts standing before them, smiling sweetly over a plate of deviled eggs. Around 3 p.m., I retreated to a quieter spot under a tree with a soda to collect myself. This day was tormenting. Christine was across the way, animatedly conversing with a small circle of neighbors, including Bill. I saw her throw her head back in laughter at something he said. He beamed, clearly pleased with himself. "Your chili is still the champ, Mike," came a voice to my right. It was Mark Sullivan, a colleague of mine from the hospital who lived a few streets over and had come to the party. He clapped me on the back as he joined me under the tree. "Oh, hey, Mark," I said, trying to muster some normalcy. Mark was an anesthesiologist I'd known for years. We occasionally golfed together. "Glad you liked it." We exchanged pleasantries about work, and he mentioned an upcoming hospital fundraiser gala next month and whether I'd be attending. As he talked, I noticed his gaze casually followed mine to where Christine stood. Mark lowered his voice. "So, things okay with you two? You seem a bit distant today." I stiffened. Was I that obvious? I forced a chuckle. "Sorry, long week at work. We're fine, just busy." Mark nodded slowly, then said, "I only ask because, and forgive me if I'm out of line, I've noticed Christine hanging around Rob Collins a lot lately. You know, during those committee meetings for the new cardiology wing. I'm sure it's nothing. She's helping with fundraising and all. Just people talk." He trailed off with an apologetic wince. Rob Collins, my boss. The name sent a jolt through me, though I tried to remain outwardly calm. "People talk, huh? What do they say?" I asked carefully. Mark shrugged, keeping his tone light. "Oh, you know, gossip. that she's been having a lot of lunches with him, helping him plan events. Some thought maybe she's angling for a community outreach job or something. I figured you knew all about it. I clenched the soda can harder. Christine had mentioned being on the volunteer committee for the New Wings fundraiser. Rob was heading that campaign. She positioned herself to spend time with him. Why? For an affair or truly to get some status? Given what I knew now, likely the former, or at least to flirt and test the waters. I managed to smile. Right, the fundraiser. Yeah, she did mention working with Rob. I'm not worried. She's just enthusiastic about the project. Mark looked relieved that I wasn't upset. He patted my shoulder. Of course, Christine is great. I didn't mean to imply anything. Just thought you should know how people are. Inside, my mind churned. So others had noticed Christine and Rob together. If a colleague as perceptive as Mark had a whiff of impropriety, there must be something there. The iceberg below the surface loomed larger by the hour. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you looking out, I said. We talked a bit more about benign topics, and then he went off to get dessert. Now I had another lead, Christine and my boss. The idea made me feel physically ill, but it also ignited a determination to catch her if that was true. By late afternoon, the party wound down. Neighbors started packing up. Christine was busy helping clean the tables and gathering our things. I offered to take our chairs and dishes back home, and she waved me off. I'll stay and help Linda and the others tidy up, she said breezily. Could you drop these off and maybe start some lemonade? I'm thirsty and I'm sure others might want to stop by for a final drink. She handed me the empty chili crock-pot and our chairs. The mention of Linda in her volunteering struck me. Was she genuinely trying to help, or just keeping up appearances? Linda had politely avoided Christine all day, I noticed. Sure, I said. I loaded the items in the car and drove the short block back to our house, pondering whether Christine really intended to invite people over for lemonade, or if she had another reason to linger. Perhaps to talk to someone in particular. I was about to walk inside when I remembered the reusable grocery bag I'd seen in Christine's car the night before. With a quick glance to ensure she hadn't followed yet, I moved to her car in the driveway. The bag was still on the back seat. I tried the door locked, but in my hurry to leave earlier, I had unlocked the car to load chairs and might not have relocked it. Luck was with me. The back door opened. I grabbed the patterned green bag. It felt heavier than a few grocery totes should. My pulse quickened as I peeked inside. Nestled among two folded shopping totes was a small, flat object. A cell phone, an older model smartphone, screen down. Beside it, a slim charger pack. My heart thundered. A secret phone. It could only be one thing, her burner for contacting those men. Hands shaking, I slipped the device and charger into my jacket pocket and put the empty bag back. Then I quickly relocked the car and hurried inside our house. In the kitchen, I set the crock-pot down and wiped my brow. I couldn't believe I was actually holding evidence now, but I had to be careful. Christine would likely notice if her second phone went missing for long. She might think she misplaced it, but if she got suspicious, my cover was blown. I fetched a pitcher and started making lemonade, just in case she actually did bring someone. As I stirred in sugar and ice, I debated with myself. Should I inspect the phone right now or wait? She might be home any minute. The temptation for answers won out. I pulled the phone from my pocket and hit the power button. The screen lit up, asking for a PIN. Of course, I expected that. 4 digits. Christine's usual phone had a PIN, one I knew because occasionally she asked me to check something on it for her. But would she dare use the same for this? That would be risky if I ever saw her entering it. However, Christine likely never let me see this device at all. Still, she might use something memorable. I tried her birthday month and day. The screen blinked in error. Next, I tried our anniversary 0415 for April 15th. No luck. How about her old ATM PIN? I remembered it was something like 1221. Denied. I was running out of easy guesses. One more try before it might lock me out for a time. I paused, thinking. Then an idea. The code we use for our house alarm. It was a random 4-digit we chose together years ago, not easily connected to her personally. It was worth a shot. I typed it in slowly, 7309. The phone unlocked. I let out a breath, adrenaline surging. The home screen revealed a generic wallpaper and a modest list of apps. No social media icons, no obvious identifiers. I tapped the Messages app first, the icon showing a few unread messages. A list of message threads opened, each labeled with either a phone number or a first name. A number ending in 14477, Rob C. Eric. A number ending in 13198, unknown. My eyes widened. There it was, Rob C. Rob Collins. My boss's first name is Robert. I felt sick, but forced myself to click it. A chain of texts filled the screen. Rob C. Can you meet for lunch on Wednesday? I have a break at 1. Christine, wouldn't miss it. I'll bring those donor lists you wanted. Rob C. You're a lifesaver. I'm looking forward to it. Rob C. 2 days later. Lunch was great. We should do it more often, without any work excuses next time. Christine, I'd like that. Name the day, Dr. Collins. Rob C. How about next week, my place? I can cook. Christine, bold offer. I might take you up on it. My hands tightened on the device. There it was, flirtation, an invitation to his place. If this continued, it might already be physical or heading there. My teeth ground at the thought of her and Rob alone. I scrolled up a bit. It seemed this thread started only a few weeks ago, maybe after Linda discovered the Dave affair. Christine wasted no time lining up the next. A few texts implied they'd met at least a couple times for lunch or drinks under the guise of planning the fundraiser. I backed out, heart pounding, and opened the thread labeled Eric. This one went back months, into spring. Eric, last night was incredible. Still thinking about you. Christine, it was fun, so naughty of us. When's round 2? Eric, soon. I'll check when the wife's out of town again. Christine, perfect. I love having you all to myself without sneaking around the hospital. Eric, maybe next time we could not drink as much. I barely made it home lol. Christine, oh, but you were cute and tipsy, and I like it when your guard is down. Eric later, haven't heard from you. Is everything okay? Christine, busy week. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten my favorite radiologist. Eric, you had me worried. Thought maybe you moved on. Christine, now, patience. All good things come in time. Then, a month later, Eric, I can't do this anymore. I feel guilty. Christine, we're just having fun. Why feel guilty over a few laughs and thrills? Eric, I love my wife. This was a mistake. Christine, if you loved her, you wouldn't be here. But suit yourself. It was fun while it lasted. Eric, please don't tell anyone. Please. Christine, I'm no tattletale. Secret safe. Eric, thank you. Christine, though, are you sure you want to cut off the most exciting thing in your life? Eric, goodbye, Christine. I stared at the screen in disbelief. This thread painted a chilling picture. She'd been involved with Eric, one of the hospital's radiologists, if I recalled correctly, a man I knew casually. The poor guy sounded racked with guilt and desperate to end it, while Christine teased him for being boring. There was no remorse on her part, only playful taunting. I swallowed the bile in my throat and moved on, checking the ones labeled by number. One was brief and angry. 14477, you bitch, you told her. Christine, I did you a favor. Now you're free, aren't you? 14477, she took the kids, my life is ruined. Christine, shouldn't have promised what you couldn't give. Actions have consequences. 477, I loved you. Is this all a game to you? Christine, there are bigger games afoot. Goodbye, Dave. I had to sit down. My legs were trembling. That exchange was clearly Dave Wilson. So Linda was right. Christine deliberately blew up that affair. ensuring Linda found out. Dave's pain, his family's destruction, it had been just another game to her. And her replies, cold, superior. My blood ran cold. Who was this person? This wasn't just infidelity. This was cruelty for sport. I realized time was short. Christine could walk in any minute. I hastily snapped photos of the screen with my own phone for each conversation evidence I could not afford to lose, particularly the damning ones like Dave's and the one with Rob. The thread marked unknown caught my eye. It was just a single message from a week ago. Unknown, I know what you are. There was no response from Christine and no further context. Just that one chilling text. Did she receive a threat? Who sent it? Possibly Dave or Eric. But they had identified themselves. Maybe it was someone else she hurt. I took a picture of that too, though it puzzled me. If someone else knew what she was, perhaps I wasn't the only one seeking to expose her. But that was a question for later. I carefully put the phone back to sleep, cleared any obvious signs of activity, and slid it into my pocket. Moments later, I heard the door from the garage. Christine walked in with the last of the party supplies. I quickly poured 2 glasses of lemonade to look busy. All done, I greeted, sounding as normal as I could manage with my heart still pounding. She exhaled, setting down the folded tables she'd retrieved. Yes, oh, what a day. I am beat, but it went well, don't you think? Definitely, I replied, handing her a glass. My hands were steadier than I expected. The act of seeing those messages had an odd effect. Confirmation gave me a strange clarity. I was no longer plagued by uncertainty, now I had facts, as ugly as they were, and those facts steeled my resolve to remain composed. She sipped gratefully. Thanks, so refreshing. I looked at her over the rim of my glass. She seemed genuinely relaxed, maybe even happy. Why not? She'd put on a show at the party, lined up potential future thrills, and I had given no indication that I knew anything. In her mind, she was safe, in control. An image of her text to Dave flashed in my mind. There are bigger games afoot. Was that how she saw life? A game of trust and betrayal that she always intended to win? As she chatted about some silly thing Carol's kid did at the party, I just nodded along, my mind calculating. I needed to return the phone to her car before she discovered it was gone. Likely she wouldn't check it until she went out alone again. Maybe later tonight or tomorrow when she tried to contact one of her conquests. I glanced at the clock. Late afternoon. Perhaps after dinner I could slip it back. For now, I was sitting on a trove of evidence. Text messages implicating her in multiple affairs and outright malicious behavior. It was enough to confront her, to blow up our life. But I didn't want a confrontation that devolved into she said, he said. I needed this evidence in a more secure way, maybe even to consult a lawyer, especially if she tried to twist the narrative against me. Also, there was the matter of my boss. If I revealed that affair, the fallout would extend to my workplace. I realized with a sinking feeling how entangled this was becoming. Christine's games were not just between us. They had ensnared neighbors, colleagues, possibly more unknown people. Exposing her could cause scandal in our community and damage reputations, including mine by association. But what choice did I have? To protect others and myself, I'd have to act. I locked the evidence photos in a secure folder on my phone. Then I methodically deleted any sign of them being opened or forwarded on her secret phone, hoping she wouldn't detect anything amiss. Dinner that evening was a quiet affair, just leftovers eaten while Christine flipped through a lifestyle magazine, occasionally mentioning some recipe we should try. I responded where appropriate, my voice neutral, my gaze down to hide the fury that threatened to blaze out. Every so often I'd steal a look at her and wonder how her face could look so serene, how those eyes could be the same ones that regarded others' pain as trivial. There was a hollowness at her core that I was only now glimpsing. After cleaning up, Christine said she was exhausted and wanted to turn in early with a good book. She pecked my cheek and went upstairs around 9 p.m. This was my chance. I retrieved the hidden phone from its temporary hiding spot behind some books in my home office, where I'd stashed it after copying data. Silently, I slipped out through the garage to the driveway. I opened her car again with the key I'd taken from her key hook. With a hand flashlight, I replaced the phone and charger exactly where I found them inside the folded green tote bag. As I was about to shut the car door, I noticed something else in the bag that I hadn't before, a greeting card envelope wedged at the bottom of the tote. My breath caught. Carefully, I slid it out. In the flashlight's beam, I saw it was addressed to C in a scrawled pen. I recognized the handwriting, not Christine's, but vaguely familiar. I opened it and pulled out a card with a picture of red roses on the front. Inside was a message. My dearest C, even if you won't talk to me, I need you to know how I feel. What we have is special. I can't believe you would cast me aside so easily. If I meant anything to you, please, just meet me once more. If I don't hear from you, I don't know what I'll do. Forever, and I mean that yours. D. D. Dave? Or some other D. It didn't quite fit Dave's style to send a letter if he'd been angrily texting. Could it be someone else with initial D? Perhaps a previous fling, or someone currently being ghosted by her. The tone was desperate, almost unstable. I don't know what I'll do sounded like a veiled threat or a despairing cry. I took a photo of the note with my phone and then placed the card back exactly as it was. I locked the car and crept back inside. My heart was rattling in my ribcage as I returned to my office and hid my phone evidence. Now there was a new element, some lover or ex-lover who was in distress at Christine's rejection, enough to write a dramatic note. Suddenly, that single, unknown text made a chilling sense. I know what you are. Perhaps it was from this same person, feeling scorned and vengeful. If someone else was unhinged and stalking Christine or seeking revenge, things could get dangerous. As angry as I was with her, I didn't want violence. But maybe Christine had already moved on to targets like Rob, dropping the more emotionally attached ones, leaving broken hearts in her wake. A jilted lover could be unpredictable. I realized that in addition to gathering evidence for my own confrontation, I might also need to protect us from external fallout. Christine had truly been playing with fire, and it wasn't just her and I who might get burned. That night, I barely slept again. Christine read beside me for a while, then rolled over to sleep peacefully, as if without a care in the world. I lay awake pondering my next moves. Secure legal advice. What would a divorce look like, given her fault? Would evidence of infidelity help me? Possibly confide in someone trustworthy, like Mark or another friend, or even a private investigator, to have support when confronting her. And consider warning Dr. Collins, my boss, or perhaps his wife if he had one, because if Christine continued, a lot more was at stake than just my marriage. My life had turned into something stranger than fiction in the span of 48 hours. I was living with a woman who felt like a dangerous stranger, but at least now I had removed the blindfold and begun to see the truth. There was no going back. I steeled myself for the coming confrontation. Tonight, the charade would end, and the truth would finally come to light. Sunday morning arrived gray and drizzly, which matched the heaviness in my chest. Christine slept in late, seemingly worn out from the previous day's festivities. I, on the other hand, had been up since dawn, sipping coffee at the kitchen table and reviewing everything I'd gathered so far. The photos of her text messages, the image of that eerie love note signed D, and notes I jotted down about potential next steps. I felt like a detective piecing together a case only the suspect was my own wife. And the crimes, while not all illegal, were nonetheless grievous betrayals with real victims. I knew plenty about her recent misdeeds now, but one question kept nagging me. Has she always been like this? Was our entire life built on lies? Or did something happen to change her? I realized I knew surprisingly little about parts of Christine's past. We met when she was 25 and I was 28. She had mentioned college and a couple of old boyfriends, but never in detail. Early in our marriage, I recall one emotional night when she told me about a college sweetheart who died in an accident. She'd cried in my arms, saying life was short, and that's why she cherished our love so much. I had comforted her, touched that she opened up. Now I wondered, was that story even true? And if so, what really happened? My laptop was open in front of me. I decided to do some digging. Christine's maiden name was Holloway. She grew up in Indiana in a town called Greenwood and went to college at Northwestern here in Illinois. I searched for Christine Holloway Greenwood and skimmed through the results. Mostly innocuous, some old high school sports team mentions, a mention of her making the dean's list at Northwestern. Nothing scandalous at first glance. Next, I tried adding accident and death to the search with her name. It took a bit of refining, but I eventually hit on something, a local news article from Greenwood dated 2006. The snippet in the search results mentioned a car accident and the name Peter Evans. My heart rate ticked up. I vaguely remembered Christine's college boyfriend was named Peter. I clicked it. An old archived article opened, thankfully not behind a paywall. The headline read, "Local man killed in late-night collision." I read intently. Peter Evans, age 22, died when his car struck a tree on April 17, 26. The article said he was alone in the vehicle and alcohol was suspected as a factor. It was a single-car crash, late at night on a rural road outside Greenwood. What caught my eye was a quote from a friend of Peter's. He was very upset that night, more than I'd ever seen him. We tried to stop him from driving, but he wouldn't listen. He said his life was over. I sat back, absorbing that. Why would a 22-year-old say his life was over? The article didn't elaborate on that, but I had a sickening hunch. Perhaps a breakup? A betrayal? My stomach tightened. Christine had once told me Peter died in a tragic accident, and it broke her heart. But if he was upset and saying his life was over, had Christine played a role in his state of mind? I needed more context. I searched Peter Evans further, specifically trying to find any follow-up, or maybe an obituary. I found an obituary that listed the surviving family, including a sister named Allison Evans, now Allison Reed. Maybe Allison would talk to me. It was a long shot and potentially a very uncomfortable call. But if anyone knew what happened with Peter, his family might. I tracked Allison via social media. Her Facebook profile was public enough to show she lived in Indianapolis and worked for a marketing firm. With a bit of sleuthing, I found a contact number for her work office. She was in PR, so her number was listed on a press contact page. It was a Sunday, but PR types often check messages. I decided to leave a voicemail if she didn't pick up. To my surprise, after a couple of rings, a woman's voice answered, a bit wary. "Hello?" "Hi, Allison Reed," I said, hoping I had the right person. "Yes, who's this?" I took a breath. "Allison, my name is Michael Thompson. I hope I'm not intruding. I got your number from your company page. I'm calling about Peter Evans. I'm sorry to call out of the blue. Peter was, involved with my wife in college." There was silence on the line for a moment. Then her voice came back, sharper. "Why are you calling me about Peter?" I plunged on, feeling awkward but determined. "I know this might be painful to discuss. Peter dated my wife, Christine Holloway, back then when they were at Northwestern. Christine told me years ago that he died in an accident, but not much more. Lately, I've discovered some unsettling things about Christine, and I have reason to believe Peter's accident might not have been entirely unrelated to her. I was hoping you could tell me anything, from your perspective, about what happened back then." Allison's breath caught. "Are you saying Christine has something to do with Peter's death?" I grimaced. "I'm not sure. I know Peter was upset that night, according to the news. Did Christine do something to him? I'm trying to piece it together. I'm sorry if this is reopening old wounds." She let out a bitter laugh. "Old wounds? Mr. Thompson, those wounds never really closed. If your wife is Christine Holloway, then I'm not surprised you're finding unsettling things. I have plenty to say about her." A mix of relief and dread washed over me. "I'm listening." Allison took a deep breath. "Peter and Christine dated for about a year in college. My brother was so in love with her. He was even saving up for an engagement ring. Did you know that? He planned to propose after graduation. My throat tightened. Christine never mentioned an engagement to me, just that he passed away. Allison scoffed. I bet she didn't mention what happened right before that crash. Peter found out Christine was cheating on him. He caught her in the act, to be blunt. I walked in on her with some guy in her dorm room. This was the night of his 22nd birthday, of all times. They were supposed to go out to celebrate, but she blew him off, so he went looking for her. And, well, that's what he found. I closed my eyes, and I was in pain. Christine had cheated before, no surprise there, but hearing it spelled out made me sick. Allison continued, voice shaking with emotion even years later. He came home to our parents' house completely shattered. I was still in high school, but I remember him bawling like a child, saying she laughed at him, that she didn't even apologize. She told him he was bored and that she needed more excitement. She said it was over and he should go get a life. Allison practically spat the words, anger radiating through the phone. I felt a white-hot anger rise in my own chest. The cruelty in that scenario was staggering, yet it matched the pattern I was coming to know. So he was distraught when he drove off that night, I murmured. Yes, drunk and heartbroken. He crashed his car at high speed. The police ruled it an accident influenced by alcohol, but I call it what it was. He killed himself, one way or another, because of what she did. Allison's voice broke, and I heard her sniff on the other end. I'm so sorry, I said softly. I had no idea. Christine framed it as just a tragic accident, like she had no part in it. Of course she did, Allison hissed, regaining her composure. The day after his funeral, she actually had the gall to send my parents a letter. Want to know what it said? It was basically, I'm sorry for your loss, but please know Peter's choices are not my fault. He had issues I couldn't help him with. It was utterly self-serving, like she was afraid we blamed her and she wanted to absolve herself without facing us. My jaw clenched. That sounded exactly like something Christine would do. Avoid accountability, protect her image. Allison, I appreciate you sharing this. I'm discovering that Christine has a pattern of, well, hurting people and not caring. It's not just Peter. I paused, not sure how much to reveal. But Allison surprised me. Let me guess, cheating on you, on others, creating chaos. Yes, I exhaled. More than one affair. She's destroyed at least one other marriage recently that I know of. Possibly more. I could almost see Allison shaking her head on the other end. People like her don't change unless forced. If you called me, you must be figuring that out. I've always believed Christine had some kind of personality disorder. Narcissist, sociopath, whatever label. She left a trail of damage in Greenwood 2 friendships. She blew up by betraying trusts, rumors she spread. But with Peter, she crossed a line. I always half-hoped she'd end up suffering for what she did, but I heard she moved away and married some doctor. Guess that's you. Yeah, that's me. I felt a lump in my throat, a mix of humiliation and fury at how thoroughly I'd been duped. Allison took a gentler tone. Look, I'm sorry. I know this must be horrible to hear. Are you safe? I mean emotionally, but also if she really is sociopathic, she might be dangerous if confronted. I don't think she'd become physically violent, I said slowly. Christine had never shown a hint of physical abuse. But she can be vindictive. I have to be careful. I hope you expose her. People like that, they need to face consequences, Allison said bitterly. Then she added, if there's anything I can do, or if you need me to confirm what I told you in any way, I will. Not for her, but for you and for Peter's memory. Thank you. If it comes to that, maybe a statement could help. But at minimum, what you've given me is clarity. I won't second-guess leaving her, not after knowing this. We talked for a few more minutes. I expressed my condolences again for her brother and thanked her sincerely. When I hung up, I felt simultaneously sick and oddly fortified. Christine's destructive behavior wasn't a recent development or a response to something lacking in our marriage. It was who she fundamentally was, stretching back to long before I knew her. The gravity of it crushed me for a moment. 10 years with this woman, how much of it was real? How much of the love she professed was just an act, a means to secure a stable life while she chased thrills behind my back? Did she ever love me at all? I might have sat there spiraling for hours, but a sound pulled me out of it. Soft footsteps on the stairs. I hurriedly closed my laptop. Christine appeared in the kitchen doorway in her robe, hair mussed from sleep. "Good morning, sleepyhead," I greeted, hoping my voice sounded normal. She yawned and smiled. "Morning. You're up early for a Sunday." She moved to the coffee pot and poured herself a cup. "Couldn't sleep much," I said honestly. She looked sympathetically at me. "Still stressed from work?" I just nodded and sipped my coffee, not trusting myself to speak. I half feared she'd be able to read something in my eyes after all I'd learned. But she just patted my shoulder as she walked by. "Well, try to relax today. Maybe we can go to the mall or catch a movie. Something fun." "Maybe," I replied, forcing a smile. The idea of doing something as a happy couple felt grotesque, but I played along. As she headed off to shower, I realized I needed to take action soon. The longer I waited, the harder it would be to maintain this facade. Yet, I needed a plan for confrontation that wouldn't allow her to weasel out or turn the tables. And there was also the issue of Dr. Collins. If she pursued him and he reciprocated, it could entangle my professional life. If I preemptively told him or his wife what I knew, it might stop Christine's affair with him. But it could also create a scandal at work, which might reflect poorly on me regardless. Perhaps I could approach Dr. Collins privately. He'd known me for years. Maybe he would believe me if I showed him evidence and asked him to cut off contact with Christine. It was a risky move. Confronting one's boss about an affair with one's own wife sounds almost absurd, but these were absurd circumstances. I decided to at least gauge the situation with Rob before doing anything drastic. I recalled that he usually hit the gym on Sunday afternoons at a fitness club nearby, something he'd mentioned casually at work. Christine knew that too. She might have even orchestrated running into him there. That gave me an idea. "Something fun," she had said. "Perhaps I could suggest we go to the gym together today." Christine occasionally went, though normally on weekdays. If I propose it, would she balk, knowing Rob might be there? Or maybe she'd agree to seem normal, and I could observe their interaction. It was a slim chance to glean anything, but worth a try. When Christine came back down, dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt, I put on my best amicable expression. "Hey, what do you think about hitting the gym in a bit? I feel like I need a good workout to clear my head." She paused, stirring her second cup of coffee, a bit surprised. "The gym? On a Sunday?" "Sure, why not? We've got that couple's membership gathering dust, unless you had other plans for us." She hesitated just a fraction before smiling. "No, gym sounds good. I could use a run on the treadmill." If she was nervous about seeing Rob, she didn't show it. But I noticed she quickly sent a text while I went to get my gym bag, probably to Rob if she suspected my motives. I had no way to know. We arrived at the Northside Fitness Club around 11 a.m. The place was moderately busy. As we swiped in at the front desk, I felt my pulse quicken. Was this a dumb move? What exactly was I hoping to catch? I had my phone ready in my pocket if I needed to snap a surreptitious photo or record something. We split up at the locker rooms to change. When I came out, Christine was already on the gym floor, walking toward the treadmills. My eyes scanned the room for Rob Collins. Sure enough, there he was bench pressing in the free weight area, his personal trainer spotting him. Rob was a fit man in his mid-50s, graying at the temples. Hard to miss. As Christine climbed onto a treadmill, I chose one a couple down from her, pretending to fiddle with the settings. I saw her eyes dart toward the weight area and find Rob. Then she began her run, face forward, but I could see a slight smile on her lips. She'd spotted him. I started jogging on my machine, mind racing more than my legs. Would she approach him? Would he approach her? Perhaps when his trainer stepped away. After about 10 minutes, Rob finished his bench set. He toweled off and happened to glance toward the cardio equipment. His gaze landed on Christine hard not to notice an attractive blonde in tight workout gear. A smile of recognition crossed his face. He raised a hand in greeting. Christine gave a little wave back, not missing a step on the treadmill. Then she gestured as if inviting him over once he was free. My heart thundered. They were about to interact right in front of me. Neither had noticed me a few machines away, or at least hadn't acknowledged. Christine might be deliberately acting casual since I'm present, but clearly she wasn't going to ignore him. Moments later, Rob said something to his trainer and then made his way over, wiping sweat off his brow. He approached Christine's treadmill, a broad grin on his face. I slowed my pace to a fast walk, straining to hear over the gym noise and the music pumped through speakers. "Christine, didn't expect to see you here," Rob said, loud enough for me to catch. Christine slowed her treadmill to a walk and flashed him her brightest smile. "Dr. Collins, fancy meeting you. I usually come earlier, but I was lazy this morning," she lied breezily. Rob chuckled. "Please, call me Rob. We're not at work." He rested one arm on the treadmill handle, his stance comfortable, familiar. I kept my eyes forward, but my ears trained on them. "How have you been?" Christine asked, tilting her head and slowing the treadmill to a stop entirely so she could stand and chat. "Everything on track for the gala?" "Yeah, hectic as always. Thanks to your help with the donor list, though, we're making progress," Rob said warmly. "I owe you lunch for that, by the way." Christine gave a playful shrug. "It was nothing, but I won't turn down a free lunch." Rob smiled. "Great. Maybe this week. I'll text you." The casual intimacy, the assumption she had his number, the comfort level, they certainly knew each other beyond formal meetings. It was all in subtext, but I heard it clear. From the corner of my eye, I could see Christine glance my way briefly. Was she checking if I was listening? I kept my face neutral, pretending to be in the zone with my workout, though my heart was pounding in my ears. "And how's Michael?" Rob asked then, catching me off guard. I quickly schooled my expression, still looking ahead. "He's right over there," Christine chirped, and I felt both of their gazes land on me. I turned my head and gave what I hoped looked like a surprised smile. "Oh, hi, Dr. Collins. Didn't see you," I lied. Rob nodded politely. "Michael, taking a day off to stay in shape, I see." "Trying to," I responded, slowing my machine. I stepped off so I could talk without the thrum of the belt under me. "Good to see you, sir." He waved a hand dismissively. "We're at the gym. Drop the formalities. Call me Rob." I forced a chuckle. "All right, Rob. Didn't know you two already ran into each other." "Just now," Christine answered smoothly. "I told him we're usually here earlier." "Right," I said, wiping non-existent sweat with my towel to buy a second. "Christine's been telling me how much effort you've put into that fundraiser. She really enjoys working with you on it." Rob gave Christine an appreciative look. "She's been a great help. I'm glad she volunteered." There was an awkward beat awkward, at least for me, possibly not for them. Rob cleared his throat. "Well, I should get back to my trainer before he wonders if I collapsed. Nice seeing you both." He gave us a congenial nod. "Don't be strangers here. We could all do partner workouts sometime," he added, perhaps just politely, perhaps testing waters. Christine smiled. "That'd be fun." I kept my polite face plastered on until he walked away. Then I pretended to adjust my shoelace, mostly to hide the rage twisting my expression. The gall of them, chatting me up while planning lunches behind my back. Christine stepped off her machine and exhaled. "Phew, I think that's enough cardio for me." She dabbed her neck with her towel, avoiding my eyes. I realized she might be trying to cut the gym trip short now that the encounter was done, perhaps worried I'd linger and watch more. "Sure, "We can head out," I said evenly. We grabbed our things and left. In the car, Christine was unusually quiet, scrolling on her phone, probably messaging Rob or checking if he texted after that. I broke the silence. "So, you and Dr. Collins text each other?" I tried to sound casual, as if just curious. She glanced up, her guard visibly going up a notch. "Now and then, about fundraiser stuff. Why?" I shrugged. "Just didn't realize you were on a first-name basis and all. He's my boss, you know. Gotta make sure he isn't working you too hard on this volunteer thing." It was a weak cover, but Christine seemed to accept it. She chuckled lightly. "Oh, he's a perfect gentleman. Don't worry, I can handle Rob. He's very appreciative of my help." "I bet he is," I thought bitterly. Good to know. She turned back to her phone, effectively closing the conversation. That brief interchange told me something. She was aware of the delicate nature of getting too close to my boss and wanted to keep me unalarmed. My probe hadn't rattled her much outwardly, but she did shift the subject and gave a fluff answer. The gym venture hadn't yielded anything explosive, but it confirmed they were friendly and likely planning another private meet. I had enough evidence in the texts, but seeing it live fueled my resolve. Now I truly had everything. Hard proof of her affairs multiple. Testimony that her behavior caused at least one death, Peter. The current danger she posed to my professional life, Rob. And an ally, Linda, possibly, and now Allison if needed. It was time to truly plan the showdown. But I suspected Christine wouldn't go down without a fight. She was likely juggling multiple lies and might sense any shift in my demeanor. If Daniel was vindictive, he could cause a scene. If Christine thought I was on to her, she could preempt with lies, maybe claim I had an affair, or that I'm abusive. She almost certainly wouldn't just confess meekly. I considered my options. One was to confront her privately with evidence and demand she leave or get help. That likely wouldn't yield honesty. She'd deny, deflect, maybe cry or rage. Another was more dramatic. Arrange a confrontation with witnesses. Perhaps have Linda present, or even Allison on a call, or a therapist or mediator. But Christine might just perform more lies for an audience. Alternatively, involve law enforcement, but what crime? Adultery isn't a crime, and emotional abuse isn't either. Unless I had proof of something like that older incident being foul play, but that was long past. There was one more angle. If I could get Christine to incriminate herself or admit things on tape or in front of someone who mattered like Dr. Collins or a counselor. But she'd be on guard. Maybe the best I could do was corner her with all the evidence and make sure she knew the jig was up, then see if she snaps. If she lashed out violently or threatened, I could involve the police. If not, at least I'd have grounds to divorce and socially expose her if needed. That felt so cold-blooded to think of trying to provoke my own wife into a misstep. But considering what she'd done, she was no true wife to me in any meaningful way now. My window of advantage was small. She still believed I was ignorant. Once I tipped my hand, all bets were off. I decided that I'd confront her soon, likely that night, when we were both home and no one else around. I would present everything I had: her secret phone messages, the evidence of her affair with Dave, her history with Peter, everything. I would demand an explanation that I knew likely would be unsatisfactory, but it would force her to react. A part of me dreaded it, the emotional carnage it would unleash. But another part, an angrier, wounded part, looked forward to finally dropping the pretenses and revealing that I knew her for what she was. If things went south, I had people I could call. Linda next door, possibly Mark, or even the police if it escalated. I just needed to stay composed and not fall for any manipulations. I steeled myself for the coming confrontation. Tonight, the charade would end, and the truth would finally come to light. That evening, after an early, quiet dinner, I prepared. I collected printouts I'd made at the office earlier from the evidence photos, screenshots of her texts, and the letter from D. I had them in an envelope tucked in my desk. Christine was curled up in the living room, watching a reality TV show with apparent contentment. It was almost nauseating to see her so at ease. My hands were clammy and my heart thundered as I realized this was it. After tonight, whatever happened, my life would never be the same. Either I'd force her out of her web of lies, or I risked being entangled in it forever. I stepped into the living room. "Christine, we need to talk." She sensed the gravity in my tone immediately and muted the TV, looking up at me quizzically. "Sure, honey. What's up?" Wordlessly, I motioned toward the dining room neutral ground, perhaps. Puzzled, she got up and followed me, perching at the table. I didn't sit. I reached into my desk nearby and pulled out the envelope, placing it on the table between us. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to me. I could see her mind working, a flicker of apprehension crossing her face. "Michael, you're scaring me a little. What is this?" I swallowed. The moment of truth had arrived. "It's the truth, Christine. I know. About everything." She blinked, a perfect picture of confusion. "Everything? What do you mean?" I slid the first printout out of the envelope, a screenshot of her text exchange with Dave, the line, "You bitch, you told her," visible. Christine's eyes fell on it. I saw her face go pale, even as she tried to mask it. Her lips parted, but no words came initially. "You're having affairs." "Multiple," I said quietly, my voice steadier than I felt. "I know about Dave Wilson. I know about Eric from the hospital. I know you're planning something with Dr. Collins. I know about all of it, Christine." There, it was out. The double life dragged into the light. Christine stared at the paper, then at me. To my astonishment, her confused facade dropped. Her expression flattened, eyes cooling. It was a look I hadn't quite seen before, a calculating, assessing gaze. "How did you?" She began softly, then stopped herself. A mirthless chuckle escaped her lips as she sat back in the chair. "I see. Snooping through my things, were you?" It wasn't denial. It wasn't even an apology. It was almost annoyance. Her response sent a chill through me. "You made it necessary," I replied, clenching my fists at my sides. "Do you deny any of it?" She eyed the envelope. "What else do you have in there?" "Enough. Enough to expose you to everyone if I want to." My voice trembled slightly with anger. "How could you, Christine, after all we've been through?" She rolled her eyes, actually rolled them, as if I were being dramatic. "Oh, spare me the wounded husband act, Michael." I recoiled as if slapped. "Act? You think I'm acting? You've been lying to me, sleeping around, breaking apart others' lives, and I'm not supposed to be wounded?" Her jaw tightened, a flash of anger now. "Keep your voice down," she hissed, glancing toward the front window as if worried neighbors might hear if it escalated. I lowered my tone but leaned in. "Linda came to me. She told me what you did to her and Dave. You ruined their family, Christine, and you didn't even care." Christine folded her arms, lips pressing thin. "Dave pursued me," she said coldly. "If their marriage was solid, he wouldn't have strayed. That's on them." My eyes widened at her audacity. "Listen to yourself. You seduced him." She shrugged. "He had a choice, and he made it. I never forced anyone." I shook my head in disbelief. "What about me? What choice did I have when you made vows to me and broke them repeatedly? Did you ever love me at all?" She looked at me as if the question were irrelevant. "Love, love. Why are you so stuck on that? Of course I care about you, Michael. I care about our life together. But I needed more than your naive version of love. I need excitement, passion. You barely have time for me with your career. Can you blame me for seeking a little fun?" The casual justification, as if her betrayal was my fault for being a busy surgeon, ignited a fury in me. "Fun? Destroying trust is fun for you." At that, her eyes glittered. She stood slowly, leaning on the table, facing me. "Yes, yes, Michael, it is," she said, voice low and trembling slightly, not with fear or guilt, but with intensity. "You have no idea how dull it is being the perfect housewife in this boring suburb, smiling at nosy neighbors, hearing about Tom meetings and casserole recipes. I needed more. The thrill of a secret, of seeing desire in someone's eyes who's not contractually obligated to me. She sneered the word. That made me feel alive. And the moment I see the trust crumble, see the truth dawning on their faces. She stopped, breathing hard, almost. Ecstatic? I felt a wave of nausea. She was basically admitting it, with no shame, possibly even enjoying flaunting it now that she was caught. You're sick, I said quietly. You need help. That made her laugh a sharp, mocking sound. Spare me, I've been this way long before you. I never pretended to be a saint, Michael. You just assumed I was. My God, I whispered, stepping back. What happened to you? Why are you like this? She snorted. Why does anyone become who they are? Maybe I was born broken. Or maybe, just maybe, I got tired of being the one betrayed. Her voice took on a bitter edge. Did you ever wonder about my father? Probably not, I never told you. He cheated on my mother throughout their marriage. I learned young that trust is a joke. There is no true fidelity. It's all about who holds the power. I decided I would never be weak like my mom, crying over a man. I would be the one in control. Every relationship, a game where I make the rules. I was stunned into silence for a moment. She had never mentioned those details, though it hardly justified her actions. Christine, that's terrible, what your father did, but it doesn't excuse. She waved it off. I'm not asking for your pity or understanding. I don't need it. The point is, I did what I wanted, and you were too blind to see. You should be thanking me for at least being discreet enough that you got to enjoy a peaceful home life all these years. That broke something in me. Thanking you? I hissed. You think I should be grateful for your lies? She rolled her neck as if this was all very tiresome. I gave you what you wanted, a pretty, doting wife, a clean home, social status. You had your career to focus on. Meanwhile, I had my own little world that didn't concern you. We could have kept going like this, but you had to dig. My hands were trembling with anger. Of course I dug. I'm not an idiot. You think this could go on forever? Sooner or later you'd slip up. Her eyes flashed. Maybe I wanted to get caught. It came out in a snarl. Did you consider that? Maybe I'm bored of you, Michael. Maybe I was already planning to walk away once I secured something better. Like my boss, I shot back. Is that your next move? Or were you planning to divorce me and take half of everything once you had your fun? She smirked, not denying it. Rob has influence and money, and unlike you, he knows how to appreciate a woman in and out of the bedroom. But don't worry, I hadn't decided yet if he was worth leaving you for. Your job does pay well, after all, and you have your uses. I had to grip the back of a chair to steady myself. Hearing her talk about me like I was just an ATM or a placeholder stung deeply. But I wouldn't let her see that pain anymore. I wore my anger like armor now. Enough, Christine, I said with deadly calm. This ends here. I want you out of this house. We're done. She leaned back, crossing her arms, regarding me with an icy smile. Or what? You'll expose me. Go ahead. Let's see how that works out for you. A big scandal in the neighborhood and at your precious hospital. Everyone will whisper that Dr. Thompson couldn't satisfy his wife. You'll look like a fool. I faltered for a second. She had no shame about exposure, only how it could hurt me. If it saves others from your games, I'll do it, I said, though the thought of it made my stomach knot. Her expression turned more sinister. You think anyone will care? People love a juicy drama for a moment, then it passes. I'll come out fine. Women always get sympathy, especially if I cry and claim you neglected or abused me. She stepped toward me slowly. Yes, that's what I'll do. I'll tell everyone you were a workaholic who emotionally abused me, drove me into the arms of others. Hell, I'll say you hit me. She bared her teeth in a grin. Whose story do you think they'll believe? Perfect little Christine or you, who everyone saw shouting just now? I realized with horror she truly was ready to scorch the earth. I have evidence, I reminded her, gesturing to the envelope. She scoffed. Text messages, those can be faked. And you think Rob will back you up if you expose him? He'll deny and help me to save his own career and marriage. Linda's word, she might be on your side, but I can paint her as a jealous liar. The only solid thing you have is that I cheated. Boo-hoo, a lot of marriages deal with infidelity quietly. You'll just be the betrayed sap airing dirty laundry. No one will think you're a hero, Michael. They'll pity you at best. Her words were like poison, seeping into every fear I had. But I clung to one thing. She had slipped in revealing her willingness to lie about abuse. That was something I could actually protect against. I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped the screen. All recorded, I said, my own grin mirroring her malice. On the display, the voice memo timer stopped at 15 minutes. I'd started it just before confronting her, not knowing what I'd capture, but it seemed I'd gotten gold. Christine's confident face blanched for the first time. You, she lunged for the phone, but I stepped back. I warned, holding it out of reach. I'll keep this safe with a few copies off-site. Now, who do you think people will believe after hearing you threaten to falsely accuse me of abuse on tape? She trembled with fury, a wild look in her eyes. You bastard, she spat. You sneaky, pathetic little bastard. Pot calling the kettle black, don't you think? I said quietly. My heart was hammering. I'd outmaneuvered her at that moment, but I knew better than to underestimate what she might do next. Christine's face contorted, then suddenly she launched herself at me, nails aimed at my eyes. I stumbled back, just managing to grab her wrists. Christine, stop. She writhed, surprising me with her strength fueled by rage. Give me that, you have no right. In the struggle, her hand knocked the phone from mine. It hit the hardwood floor and skidded under the sideboard. She broke one hand free and slapped me hard across the face. My cheek burned, but I held her other arm firmly. I'd never seen her violent like this. It shook me. You won't ruin me, she snarled inches from my face. I won't let you. All her refined poise was gone. She was like a feral animal, eyes blazing. At that moment, I heard pounding footsteps and then Linda's voice calling from the front door. Michael, is everything okay? I heard shouting. Bless Linda. The front door was ajar. I hadn't fully closed it earlier in my distraction, perhaps. She must have overheard the scuffle. Christine froze as Linda appeared in the foyer, eyes wide at the scene, me holding Christine's arm as Christine seethed, ready to scratch my face off. Get out, Christine shrieked at Linda, ripping her arm from my grasp. Mind your own damn business. Linda stood her ground, though she looked alarmed. Michael, do you need help? She asked, ignoring Christine. I took a breath, touching my stinging cheek. I'm okay, I said, voice raw. Linda, maybe call the police. I didn't truly think Christine would kill me, but I wanted this documented now that physical assault entered the picture. Christine's head whipped toward me. The police? You'd have me arrested, your own wife. You attacked me, Christine, I said, sadness mixing with anger. And you just threatened to accuse me falsely. You leave me no choice. This has to stop. She let out a scream of frustration, then bolted. Not toward me or Linda, but for the back door into the yard. Christine, I shouted, following a few steps. She flung the door open and ran out into the rain that had begun to drizzle. Linda hurried up beside me. Do I really call the cops? She asked uncertainly. I watched as Christine, in her rage and panic, ran toward her car parked on the street. Without hesitation, she jumped in. The engine roared to life. She's leaving, I muttered. My adrenaline was crashing, leaving me shaky. Maybe let her go for now. Linda put a hand on my shoulder. Michael, I overheard some of that. Enough to know she's not well. Are you all right? I realized I was panting, my face throbbing where she slapped me. Emotionally, I was a wreck, but I nodded. I will be. We watched as Christine's car tore down the street, tires squealing. Where was she going? to rob, maybe, or just away. Maybe I should call the police anyway and report the incident, Linda said. In case. I swallowed. Perhaps, but she's my wife. Soon to be ex. I just want her out. If she stays away, that's fine by me. Linda gave me a sad look. I don't know what to say. I knew she was trouble, but this is a lot. I finally stepped back from the open door, rain spattering the threshold. I felt empty, hollowed out. But there was also a grim relief. The mask was off. She was gone. At least it's over, I managed, voice cracking slightly. Thank you for coming when you did. She offered a small smile. We neighbors have to look out for each other. You'd do the same. I nodded, grateful beyond words for her support. My eyes drifted to the sideboard. The phone. I crouched and retrieved it. Thankfully, no damage. The recording was still saved. Evidence, insurance. Linda gently touched my arm. Do you want me to stay or call someone? You shouldn't be alone right now. I realized my hands were shaking. Maybe just for a bit. I need to process. I'll make some tea, she offered. As Linda busied herself in the kitchen, I sank into a chair, exhaustion hitting like a tidal wave. It was done. The facade of our perfect life lay in tatters, scattered by the storm that was Christine's true self. I thought I would feel heartbreak, and I did, but strangely, there was also a sense of liberation beneath it. The truth, however awful, was better than living in her web of lies. Still, unanswered questions swirled. Where would she go? What havoc might she wreak next? Would she try to hurt me further, or others? Or would she slip away to start anew somewhere else, leaving me to pick up the pieces? I didn't know. But one thing was certain. The woman I married was gone, if she ever truly existed at all. In her place was someone I now needed to protect myself and others from. And though the confrontation was over, I had a feeling the repercussions were yet to fully unfold. I closed my eyes, a single tear escaping down my cheek. Then I wiped it away. There would be time for grief later. For now, I had to stay strong and ensure Christine could never hurt me or anyone like this again. 2 weeks later, I stood on my front porch in the early morning light, a mug of coffee warming my hands. The air smelled of damp earth after a night of heavy rain. It was the first truly peaceful morning I'd had in what felt like forever. After Christine's dramatic departure, life had moved quickly. That same night, with Linda's help, I documented the red mark on my face from her slap and made a brief report with the local police. I chose not to press charges at that moment. I mainly wanted an official record in case Christine attempted to turn the tables later. The recording on my phone was backed up in multiple places, including with a lawyer friend Mark had referred me to. Christine did not return that night, nor the next. In fact, I hadn't seen her at all since our confrontation. Through the neighborhood grapevine, I learned that she'd shown up at the Wilsons' old house, which was vacant, since Linda and the kids had gone to stay with her sister to get space from the memories. A neighbor reported seeing a car like Christine's there late that night. Perhaps she went there in a misguided attempt to find sympathy or to hide out, not realizing Linda wasn't home. Wherever she went afterward, she didn't come back to our home. I had the locks changed by the following afternoon, after consulting the lawyer about the proper steps. I left a note for Christine with my lawyer's contact information, making it clear any further communication should go through legal channels. The divorce papers were filed on grounds of adultery, and I included a separation agreement that she take her personal belongings and not contest the division of assets we'd discussed years ago in a postnup, ironically, one she insisted we sign when I made partner at the hospital to protect our finances. At the time I thought it odd, but now I wondered if she anticipated a scenario like this. To my mild surprise, she signed the documents without much fuss, via email through her own hastily acquired attorney. Perhaps she knew the evidence against her was overwhelming, or perhaps she truly didn't care to fight as long as she could walk away with some money and no public spectacle of a trial. The settlement wasn't generous to her, given her behavior, but it wasn't punitive either. I mainly wanted her out of my life, not revenge through finances. I took a leave of absence from work for a couple of weeks, citing a family emergency. It wasn't far from the truth. During that time, I met with Dr. Collins privately in his office on a quiet weekend. I'll never forget the look on his face when I calmly played him a portion of Christine's recorded tirade, specifically the parts about her needing more excitement and her interest in him. His face went ashen. He stammered that it never went beyond a few lunches, and that he was flattered but intended nothing further. Whether I believed him or not, I simply told him I expected professional boundaries to be respected, and that I had no intention of spreading gossip as long as he kept clear of my personal life henceforth. He agreed emphatically, likely relieved I wasn't threatening to go to the hospital board or his wife. In truth, the thought had crossed my mind, but I decided it was enough that he was warned and sufficiently frightened. I suspected he'd distance himself from any future entanglements with younger women, at least for a while. Linda and I became unexpected friends through all this. After separating from Dave, she had filed for divorce as well, and we found a certain camaraderie in our shared healing process. Some evenings, she'd bring the kids over, and I'd cook us all dinner, something I hadn't done in a long time, since Christine always took charge in the kitchen. It was oddly therapeutic, chopping vegetables and talking with someone who truly understood what I'd been through. We kept the topics light around the children, but later, after they were asleep, Linda and I would sometimes sit on my porch with a drink and talk for hours about what we'd learned. One night, under a clear starlit sky, she admitted, "For the longest time I wondered what I did wrong, why Dave strayed. But after hearing your story, I realized some people just lack something inside. It wasn't about me being inadequate. It was about them." I nodded. Christine tried to pin it on my work or claim I was dull. But many surgeons work long hours and don't have cheating spouses. The problem was in her, not in what I did or didn't do. Linda squeezed my hand kindly. "Exactly. Don't carry her sins as your burden." It was good advice, though not always easy to follow. There were still nights I lay awake, replaying memories of my marriage, trying to discern real moments from lies. The entire foundation of my life had shifted. Trusting my own judgment would take time. I sought out a therapist, a kind, middle-aged woman named Dr. Patel, to help sort through the trauma. In our sessions, I vented my anger, my confusion, and my guilt. Guilt for not seeing it sooner, for perhaps being too emotionally distant due to work. She gently guided me to see that while no one is a perfect spouse, I was not responsible for Christine's choices. Christine's pathology was deep-seated, likely something no amount of love or attention from me could have fixed. Coming to accept that was like shedding a heavy cloak I'd been wearing since the confrontation. As for Christine's whereabouts, they eventually became clearer. A few days after she'd vanished, I received a brief email from her via her lawyer's address. It reads simply, "Michael, I've signed the papers. I'll collect my things when you're not home, coordinate with my attorney. Don't try to find me. It's better this way. See." There was no apology, not that I expected one. True to her word, one afternoon while I was out, she came with a moving service and took her personal belongings, clothes, jewelry, some art pieces she loved. I had boxed up anything I knew was clearly hers to make it quicker. The house felt strangely empty afterward, but also calmer. Rumors swirled in the neighborhood, of course. A few folks approached me cautiously asking if everything was all right, having noticed Christine's absence. I kept responses minimal, something about growing apart and her staying with a friend for now. I wasn't about to tarnish my own dignity by unloading the dirty details to gossip. Linda, I think, shared a bit more with a couple of her closer neighbors, because I sensed a shift in the way people looked at me, a kind of sympathy that suggested they knew I'd been wronged. No one pressed me, though, perhaps courtesy, or perhaps they were just waiting to hear it from me. I appreciated that courtesy. One Saturday, Dave Wilson came by to pick up some mail from the old house and saw me in my yard. Our eyes met over the fence, and he walked over, shame-faced. "Michael, I owe you an apology," he said quietly. I don't even know where to begin." He looked thinner and had the drawn face of a man sleeping poorly. I almost felt sorry for him despite my anger. "It's done, Dave," I replied, not unkindly. "We both got burned by her." He nodded, eyes downcast. "I was a fool. She, she played me like a violin, and I risked everything for it." He swallowed hard. "Linda's filed for divorce. I see my kids on weekends, but it's hell." I didn't absolve him, but I also didn't see the point in berating him further. "I hope you learn from it, for your kids' sake, if nothing else." He wiped at one eye and offered a hand. "If I could take it back." "But you can't," I said, not taking his hand, but giving a small nod. "Just do better going forward, Dave." He nodded, understanding the forgiveness was partial at best. Then he left. It was a short, painful conversation, but oddly it gave me closure on that angle. In this whole mess, Dave was as much a pawn as a perpetrator. Christine was the common hurricane that had blown through both our lives. As the days passed, I found a new routine. I returned to work, where colleagues were mostly respectful enough not to mention the upheaval. Mark knew, of course, and he checked in often. We made a habit of lunch on Thursdays now, something to look forward to. One afternoon, I mustered the will to open an old shoe box of keepsakes from early in our marriage. Among the photos and ticket stubs was the anniversary card Christine gave me on our first anniversary. "To many more years of happiness," it read in her swirling handwriting. I didn't tear it up or throw it away. I simply put the lid back on and decided some memories would stay in the box for now. The wounds were still tender, but each day they healed a little more. About a month after the dust settled, I got a call from an unknown number. To my surprise, it was Allison Evans Peters' sister. I had informed her via email that Christine and I were done and hinted that Christine's true nature had been laid bare. Allison was calling to thank me for letting her know and to offer her own support. "It's strangely vindicating," she said, "to finally see that karma caught up with Christine, at least somewhat. I'm sorry you had to be collateral damage, though." "Karma hasn't finished with her yet, I suspect," I replied. I hadn't shared the recording or specifics beyond Christine's infidelity, but Allison seemed to sense that Christine hadn't come out of this unscathed. "People like that eventually either self-destruct or end up very alone," Allison mused. I agreed. I didn't know if Christine was truly alone, yet perhaps she had run to one of her lovers or another city entirely, but I doubted anyone could truly fill the void she carried forever. At some point, her games would catch up to her in one way or another. The legal divorce decree arrived on a sunny Tuesday, about 6 weeks after our confrontation. I was officially free. I thought I would break down in tears seeing the marriage officially dissolved on paper, but instead I felt an unexpected lightness. 10 years with Christine now distilled to a few signed pages. It was surreal, yes, but also liberating. That evening, Linda invited me and a couple of other neighbors over for a low-key gathering around her fire pit. It was perhaps the first time in a long while that I sat with a small group and felt completely at ease, no nagging worry about who was texting my wife or what secret she was keeping. I chatted with people just like Michael, not half of Michael and Christine. It felt good, even if a little lonely at moments. As the fire crackled under a starry sky, I reflected on how much had changed. The woman I once loved was gone from my life, leaving behind wreckage that I was gradually repairing. The journey ahead, learning to trust again, maybe even to love again, seemed daunting, but I reminded myself that I wasn't truly alone. Friends, neighbors, even family my sister had flown out for a weekend to support me when she heard the news formed a safety net I could rely on. One of the neighbors at the fire pit gathering, a single man named Paul who lived a few houses down, raised his drink in a toast. "To new beginnings," he said kindly, eyes flicking to me and Linda. "To new beginnings," we all echoed, clinking glasses. I took a sip of my drink and smiled. It was a small gesture, a simple phrase, but it rang true. This was a new beginning for me, a life where honesty and trust would not be taken for granted, and where I would be more vigilant yet hopefully not jaded. Later that night, after the guests left, I helped Linda douse the fire. She gave me a warm hug on the doorstep between our houses. "You're going to be okay, Michael," she said firmly. "I think so too," I replied and meant it. As I walked back to my house, mine alone, now I realized that the eerie silence that first greeted me after Christine left had been replaced by a peaceful quiet. I had my home, my career, my friends. Most importantly, I had my integrity and the truth. Inside, I set the empty mug in the sink and headed upstairs. On a whim, I stepped into the spare bedroom that Christine had used as a home office for her so-called graphic design projects. It was almost empty now, just a desk and an office chair remaining. I opened the window to let in the cool night breeze. For so long, I'd avoided this room because it reminded me of her. Now I saw it differently. It was a space that could be anything I wanted. A guest room, a study for myself, maybe a hobby room. It was, like my future, an empty space ready to be filled with something new and better. Before turning in, I checked my phone. There was one new message from an unknown number. My heart skipped, but I opened it. It read, "I'm sorry. Please forgive me." No name, but I knew the area code, Christine's new number, likely. I stared at the message for a long time. Was it a genuine apology? A bid for sympathy? A manipulation attempt because she feared I'd ruin her reputation further? I would never know for sure. In the end, I decided it didn't matter. I didn't respond. I blocked the number and deleted the message. Then I crawled into bed, feeling only a slight twinge of sadness. I knew that healing isn't linear and some days would be harder than others. But at least now, as I drifted off to sleep, I did so with my eyes wide open in a world of truth, rather than shut tight in a beautiful lie. And that was a far better place to be. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.